So this is an interview with Cllr Chris Jarman.
I'll look at my phone periodically because I photoed your questions. The first ones are all about representation. How are we represented? Well, the first thing is there are a number of different models. So far, the only one that seems to be under discussion is a mayor of a combined county authority of some sort, and the mayor would then be on a mayoral council with the government. So the mayor would be the representative to the government and would get the information back down to them. They have specific powers reserved to them about transport and infrastructure and planning strategy, etc. So those reserved powers, they basically define what's what. In effect, the mayor has reserved powers for some things and a right of veto over others. Then it comes down to local, on the Isle of Wight. What do we have? Well, we pick up the dog poo bins and the seats and park benches, etc. And we have the ability to make our own local decisions, provided they comply with the policies and decisions of the bodies above us. So it's absolutely catastrophic for our island democracy. So that's the first one on your list. I'll have a look at your second question. Second list of questions anyway, which are really about funding.
Okay.
So where are we with funding? The assertion that's been made to us is that if we go for this plan, the one of those long list of options, if we go for this one, that there will be additional devolved powers and funding associated with it. It's unclear where the funding would come from. It's specifically unclear if that would be central government funding or if it would be borrowing capability or investment from industry. We simply don't know. What we do know is that each of those areas carries a significant debt, and taking a number of debt-ridden authorities, adding them together, doesn't necessarily give you a good story. So we're going down a path where we've got don't know, don't know, don't know, many maybes, maybe ifs, no detail, and yet, like a freight train accelerating down one single track, that's where this leadership and cabinet are taking us. Not one single additional power that would come to the island has been specified to us. We've also asked the question about what additional funding would come to the island with those powers, and the answer to that is don't know. So when we talk about essential services, what the question is in your list there, lots about essential services, what do we believe there will be as a service improvement to the island? And again, it's simply a don't know. Do we know what services will be concentrated with the mayor in detail? No. Do we know what this combined county authority will have in detail? No. Do we know what will be left of the island? No. Do we know the basis of coordination between those different areas? No. Do we know what additional funding would come to those areas to provide those services? No. So I'm afraid that paints a very grim picture, doesn't it? We as the Isle of Wight, 140,000 glorious people on this island, the 7% to 10% of the totality, perhaps. So we assume that our representation, in whatever way that got exercised and how funding got distributed, would be roughly in that model. But again, we simply don't know. The lack of detail here is very troubling, very concerning for residents. The lack of knowledge and detail will continue to hinder this process going forward. Consultation. So on this one, there's a consultation running at the moment. It's a very strange consultation. I don't know if you looked at it yourself. I've looked at it. I've helped lots of residents to fill it in. We've got drop-in sessions as well. The problem with the consultation is, first of all, it doesn't mention Isle of Wight. It doesn't mention any of the services or problems the Isle of Wight has. My guess is the people who wrote this haven't got a clue what they mean by local. Some of them will interpret local as being, or area, as being the whole of Hampshire, Southampton, Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight. I think the consultation is hugely problematic. The other one that we've had pointed out to us is when you look at, when they ask for where people come from, they ask for the initial characters from your postcode. Well, those postcodes are not unique to the island. So if I type in PO39 or PO40, there are other areas of the mainland that could be confused with. So you can't look at the analysis afterwards and say, what are the views of islanders? It doesn't have that distinction about it. So it's a consultation, very flawed. We'll come back to the Isle of Wight Council for a final decision. The question is, when it comes back will all of the available options and the pros and cons of each one of them be clearly articulated to make an informed decision? Or will we only be presented with the results of one singular restructuring model and therefore be predominantly uninformed on the issue? And what we want is to make sure that whatever comes back, all of the options are considered with equal weight and equal detail. I very much doubt whether we'll get that. I think once we go down this path, if this singular track is chosen, they don't like us using the word amalgamation. But what it does really do is it amalgamates power, and it centralises that power into a mayor and an authority of which we have a minority representation in any way. So you could say that the mayor will have a responsibility over the totality of the area, but I think what it does is it takes away independence from many of the things on the Isle of Wight. I can only see that we'll become more beholden to mainland authorities, more service sharing perhaps, and whilst that might be a good thing, I'm very well aware from discussions, it's not what islanders, when I speak to them, want. They do care about services and they want them to be provided, but they want them to be provided predominantly locally by local people. They don't want to have to travel off to Southampton and Portsmouth to go to the hospital. They don't want to go for their prostate sessions over at Queen Alexander. They want things on the island. And in fact, everything that we move off the island becomes more problematic. I have people in my ward who've been diagnosed with prostate cancer who simply because of their age and their infirmity and their transport difficulties have declined going to those sessions because they simply cannot get on a bus from Totland to Newport and from Newport to Ryde to get onto a hovercraft to jump onto a minibus to the hospital every day for 6 or 8 weeks.
It's killed them.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, well, some younger people will do it and some more determined and capable people will do it. Right. What we're doing is we're disadvantaging islanders, and that is just fundamentally wrong.
Thank you very much for your insight.
That's okay.
Deep knowledge. Good stuff, Chris.
Lots of stuff, okay. Cheers.